We're told to work harder, strive for more, and push ourselves to the limit. Hustle culture tells us that success belongs to those who sacrifice the most. That if you're not working 16-hour days, you're falling behind. We're constantly being told that more effort equals more success, that the key to wealth, freedom, and happiness lies in grinding it out. But what if that's not the path to success at all? What if pushing too hard actually makes success more elusive? What if the more you try to control, the more you force things into place, the more they slip through your fingers? Over 2,500 years ago, a Chinese philosopher named Lao Tzu wrote the Tao Te Ching, one of the most profound and influential books ever written. And in its pages, he suggests the opposite of what we're often told, that extremes lead to failure, and true success comes from balance, foresight, and knowing when to step back. This ancient text is a call to stop chasing more and start embracing the simplicity that allows life to flow with ease. Lao Tzu tells us that success isn't about grinding harder, but about finding peace, balance, and letting things unfold naturally. Welcome back to the Success Bureau, where we break down the greatest books in history, from ancient wisdom to modern productivity, extracting the most powerful ideas and applying them to real life. Whether it's philosophy, psychology, business, or personal growth, we explore timeless lessons that can help us think better, live better, and make better decisions. And today, we're diving into one of the most mysterious and influential books ever written, the Tao Te Ching. This book completely changed how I think about success, control, and ambition. And there's one concept that's especially powerful: Lao Tzu's 3 treasures. If you understand these, you'll never look at life the same way again. At its core, the Tao Te Ching is a sacred text of Taoism, a philosophy and spiritual tradition that emerged in ancient China over 2,500 years ago. Taoism emphasizes living in harmony with the Tao, which can be translated as the way, the natural flow of the universe, an unseen force that moves through all things. It's the principle that guides everything in existence, from the wind and the rivers to the cycles of life and death. Taoism teaches that there is a natural flow to the world, a rhythm that governs all things, and that true peace comes from aligning with it. One of the most profound concepts in Taoism is Wu Wei, which can be translated as effortless action or non-action. This doesn't mean doing nothing, but rather it's the idea of acting in alignment with the natural flow of things, moving with the current of life rather than forcing things to happen. It's about recognizing that the world isn't something to be controlled, but something to be worked with. Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching teaches us that true wisdom comes from understanding Wu Wei, acting without force and without striving. It's the art of knowing when to step back and let things unfold naturally, and when to engage with life. Water doesn't fight obstacles, it flows around them. A tree that bends survives the storm, while a rigid one breaks under pressure. Strength often lies in flexibility, not force. But unlike many religions that set rigid laws and moral codes, Taoism is about observing nature and understanding its rhythms. Taoism teaches that true wisdom comes from following the natural order. It's about recognizing the flow of life and working with it, rather than trying to force or control everything. The idea of Wu Wei is central to this. It encourages us to act with ease and without unnecessary effort, trusting that the right actions will emerge when we align ourselves with the Tao. The Tao Te Ching is the foundation of this philosophy. It was written or compiled by Lao Tzu, a legendary figure whose very existence is debated. Was he real? Was he a myth? No one knows for sure. The story goes that Lao Tzu was a government archivist in the ancient Chinese state of Chu. He grew disillusioned with corruption, ambition, and the constant chasing of wealth and power. He realized that people were striving for things that were ultimately hollow, losing themselves in the process. As the story goes, Lao Tzu rode west towards the mountains, seeking to disappear forever. But at the border, a gatekeeper named Yinshi recognized him and said, "Before you leave, write down your wisdom for those who remain." So, before passing through the gates, Lao Tzu sat down and wrote 81 short verses, a distillation of his deepest insights on life, leadership, nature, and the universe itself. The collection became the Tao Te Ching. He who stands on tiptoe is not steady. At first, this may seem like an obvious truth, but think about how often we ignore this wisdom. Society tells us that success belongs to those who push the hardest, the ones who sacrifice the most. A man stretching on tiptoe may appear taller, but he's actually unstable. The harder you push, the easier it is to fall. Compare this to Aristotle's golden mean, the idea that virtue lies between extremes. Too much ambition leads to recklessness, too little leads to stagnation. True wisdom lies in balance, finding the sweet spot where moderation creates the most effective results. If you push too hard, you'll break. And I've been there. After working 96-hour weeks for months, I woke up one day and couldn't see properly. My vision was completely blurred. The optician wanted to prescribe insanely strong glasses, but I knew the real issue was burnout. It took me weeks to recover, and what was the point of all that work if I couldn't function? If I wasn't able to see, I couldn't enjoy the rewards of my work. Lao Tzu teaches us that extremes collapse in on themselves. If you pull a bow too tight, it snaps. If you fill a cup too full, it spills. The lesson? Don't push too hard, or you'll lose everything you're striving for. Even Confucius, often contrasted with Lao Tzu, echoed his idea. Overly eager is just as bad as too slow. Lao Tzu shares 3 key principles that guide a wise and fulfilling life. They are the bedrock of Taoist philosophy, and they apply just as much to success and ambition today as they did over 2,500 years ago. 1. Compassion. Lao Tzu writes, "If one discards compassion and is still brave, abandons economy and is still generous, forsakes humility and still seeks to be serviceable, his days are numbered. On the contrary, if one is truly compassionate, in battle he will be a conqueror, and in defense he will be secure. When even heaven helps people, it is because of compassion that she does so." Strength isn't about dominance, it's about kindness. Leadership based on compassion creates a foundation of trust, loyalty, and mutual respect. Leaders who rule with compassion instead of fear build stronger teams, more meaningful relationships, and ultimately a more successful and harmonious society. On the other hand, leadership built on fear or brute force inevitably leads to resentment and breakdown. Fear-based leadership creates an environment where people are afraid to speak up, share ideas, or make mistakes. It suppresses innovation and fosters a culture of compliance, not creativity. This leads to brittle systems, but when something goes wrong, everything falls apart. True power, according to Lao Tzu and many other great thinkers, comes from understanding and care for others. Compassion is not a weakness, but a profound source of strength. The act of caring for others enriches not just their lives, but your own as well. It's the foundation for true leadership because it recognizes that the well-being of others directly impacts your own well-being. When Satya Nadella took over as CEO of Microsoft in 2014, the company was facing a tough time. The corporate culture was pretty rigid with a lot of internal competition. But Nadella brought in a completely different approach. Instead of pushing for dominance, he introduced a culture focused on empathy and compassionate leadership. He made emotional intelligence a priority, encouraging employees to be open, kind, and vulnerable. One of his first changes was shifting from a know-it-all culture to a learn-it-all one, where the emphasis wasn't just on results, but on growth and development. And it worked. Microsoft started to flourish, not just in terms of revenue, but also employee satisfaction. The company adopted a more collaborative approach, where failure wasn't feared, but used as a chance to learn and improve. Nadella often talks about how his own experience with family illness helped him develop more empathy, and this has shaped the way he leads. The results speak for themselves. Under Nadella, Microsoft has become more innovative, inclusive, and successful. The company's stock price has soared. It's become more agile, and it's now considered one of the best places to work in tech. This shows the power of leading with compassion. It's not just about being a better leader, but about transforming the whole culture of a company. 2. Simplicity. True wealth isn't about accumulating more, but in needing less and appreciating what you already have. It's easy to get caught up in consumer culture, constantly striving for the next big thing or the next shiny toy. But Lao Tzu's message is about simplicity, finding happiness in the present, not in what's coming next. While some of these ideas might seem a bit new age or hippie, they've proven effective. Practicing gratitude for what you have, embracing minimalism, and focusing on experiences over possessions can bring more peace and joy into your life. The key is to shift your mindset from chasing more to recognizing the abundance in your current reality. A few simple habits can help you live more contently. Start by decluttering your space and mind. Practice mindfulness to stay present. And give back to others to remind yourself of the wealth you already hold. When you realize that true happiness comes from appreciating the present moment, you'll start to see that you already have everything you need for a fulfilling life. These ideas aren't just abstract, they create real change when applied in everyday life. 3. Humility. The strongest tree is the one that bends in the wind, while a rigid tree breaks. Arrogance is brittle. True strength is in knowing when to step back and allow others to thrive. Humility is the foundation of lasting success. There's a Hollywood actor that lives near me, no names mentioned, and he wears expensive designer shoes, but he takes them to the local cobbler to have the branding removed. He values the quality, but doesn't need to advertise his wealth. The wisest people don't try to impress you. They simply live well, without the need to constantly flaunt their wealth or achievements. Humility is the true measure of strength. Here are my 5 favourite quotes from the Tao Te Ching. Avoid learning if you would have no anxiety. At first glance it sounds absurd, but Lao Tzu's warning is subtle. The more you learn, the more you see. And the more you see, the more responsibility you feel. He writes that the contrast between good and evil is vast, but the difference between yes and no is often negligible. There's peace in simplicity, but with knowledge comes weight. This passage reminded me of the phrase, ignorance is bliss. Sometimes when the mind won't stop spinning, the answer isn't more information, it's less. A step back, a quiet space, a return to stillness. Common people are joyful. I alone am calm. Lao Tzu paints a picture of spring festivals and noisy crowds. He describes himself as a wanderer, ignored and out of step with the world. But there's no bitterness in it, just distance. The passage felt deeply familiar to me. I've had moments of success and contentment where I expected joy to follow automatically, but instead felt disconnected. Like Lao Tzu, I was grateful, but also aware that true joy doesn't always look like the crowd thinks it should. Sometimes it's calm, not celebration. Being like the world's valleys, eternal Te will not fail him. He will revert to simplicity. This one makes me think of the Hindu tradition of returning to the forest in the final stage of life. A return to nature, to quiet, to the source. Lao Tzu's valley metaphor reminds us that humility and depth go together. The valley isn't flashy, but it receives the rivers. It holds the life. If you let go of status and noise, you find what endures. The wise man wears wool rather than silk, and keeps his gems out of sight. This captures the Taoist ideal perfectly. Substance over display, quiet wealth, private dignity. Lao Tzu's message here is that wisdom doesn't shout, it walks softly, and it never needs to prove itself. If one discards compassion and is still brave, his days are numbered. In a world that rewards bravado, Lao Tzu flips the logic. Real strength comes from compassion, not force. If you act with kindness, you'll be powerful in battle and secure in peace. And if heaven itself helps people, he says, it is because of compassion. We often see strength and kindness as opposites, but here they are inseparable. The brave without compassion fall fast. The gentle endure. So, what are the key takeaways from this book? First, balance over extremes. When we stop chasing extremes, we naturally find stability. And as a byproduct of balance, it becomes easier to act early, to anticipate problems before they spiral out of control. Instead of waiting until something becomes a crisis, we can address it when it's still manageable. Another idea that stood out to me is this part. One must be as careful at the end as at the beginning if he is to succeed. Success isn't just about how you start, it's when and how you finish. We often put all of our energy into the start of a project, but lose focus as we get closer to the finish line. Lao Tzu teaches us to be just as mindful at the end as we are at the beginning, because that last 10% can make or break the outcome. And then there are Lao Tzu's 3 treasures: compassion, simplicity, and humility. True strength comes from kindness. Simplicity allows us to focus on what truly matters, and humility keeps us grounded and free from the need to impress others. The wisest people don't chase more, they master what they already have. Well, that's it for today's video. I highly recommend that you read the Tao Te Ching yourself. It's not a very long book and it's widely available. I recommend this Capstone Press edition. The translation's easy to read, it's well laid out, and it's really cheap too. If you've enjoyed this video, please smash the like button for me. Please leave me a comment below, consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.